the people who are lower on the economic ladder and things of that matter. But 9.9 times out of 10, our teachers are being able to apply and approve for these programs, right?
Outside of
So,
school, no black people in her environment. Mom was like so distraught. Like, why is my child picking on this little girl?
right.
And I said, Mom,
How we can start retaining more of our children in our early learning centers as opposed to turning them over into the school systems, right? So let's talk a little bit about what are some things that the Garden of Knowledge does that kind of sets you apart from,
and we don't necessarily get the planning periods
right,
that public school teachers get, and we still make it all happen.
right,
And we're also in the classroom longer in the day.
right.
They're in the classroom 8 hours a day.
The children being exposed to a male in the center, the parents being exposed to a male, and then like you say, a black male at that. That level of comfortability. I think is so
Having to
important.
create, we talking about public schools, right? Okay, public schools, lack of support from admin, having to create their own curriculums.
Hey, my friends, this is me, Coach Stacey B, here with another episode of the Childcare Teacher Chronicles podcast. I am here with someone who is near and dear to my heart. This girl is a boss in her own right. She is very knowledgeable about the early childcare sector, and she really just setting things afire right now. I would like to introduce Jennifer Stevenson from Garden of Knowledge. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Stacey.
How are you, darling?
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, thank you for taking that shag from Bogalusa, Louisiana,
Yes.
on down to New Orleans to talk some childcare matters. I wanted to get you on the podcast because, as I said, you are always so full of knowledge. We met when we met. Were you hadn't opened your center yet? You were still working at a center, right?
Correct.
When we met some years ago, you were still working at a center, and then it was like in the blink of an eye, you was like, "Y'all, I'm opening a center," and then you took us along your journey, and then the center got open.
Yes.
And so you are now in how many years of operating?
3.
3 years of operating. And we talk a lot because we both sit on the board for the Child Care Association of Louisiana.
Yes.
So we talk a lot of matters about, advocacy and funding and staffing and children and families and all the shit that goes into it, which a lot of people don't know this. But again, you always have such an insightful voice and opinion. Go ahead and let the audience know who you are and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into today's topic.
So, as you said, my name is Jennifer Stevenson, the owner of the Garden of Knowledge. I've been in early childhood education for probably about 14, 15 years now. And I started from the very bottom, took the first job that I could get. I was a child specific. So I worked with children with special needs, and I worked at a Head Start here in New Orleans. I was
Okay.
actually in the Ninth Ward.
Okay.
And for that center,
nine,
the
nine.
upper nine, upper nine. And so being the child specific for someone, I was very knowledgeable with special needs. So they kind of made me like the go-to person at that particular center for all of the teachers who had special needs children in their classroom, and I would kind of help and guide them. Then when we bought our house in Bogalusa, it was a very long drive. I mean, that's 2 hours one way.
Right.
So I got a job working closer to home, teaching in the private sector.
Right.
And then I landed a job working for somebody else as a director. So I've worked every position. I've been a floater. I've been in the kitchen. I've been in the classroom of all of the ages. Yes, I have my favorites and my least favorite age groups. And I think it's important as a owner and director to recognize that in our staff. Anyway, so yeah, and I've just gotten one thing really kind of led to another. I meet a person and an opportunity would pop up, and you miss 100% of the chances that you don't take. So I took every chance that I could, and now here I am with you on this beautiful couch.
On this beautiful couch. And today we are actually going to talk about childcare versus public schools.
Whew.
That's a lot that we could unpack in this conversation, but
Yes.
my question is, why are early childhood teachers paid less but work more? Well, let me first ask this. Before we get into that, do you think early childcare teachers work more than teachers of lower elementary grades?
I don't think that. I know that.
Oh, okay.
I know that. I've worked in public schools in early childhood. I was actually a permanent substitute teacher assistant in a pre-K special needs class. Back then it was called non-cat, which is short for non-categorized. So it wasn't like specifically autism or specifically Down syndrome. We had OHI, which is other health impairment, autism. We had everything.
Right.
And so I know the work that we did in those classrooms, and now I'm in this area, and I know we work more in a childcare setting than in public schools.
And get paid
a whole lot less.
A whole lot less.
Why
do you think that's so?
Society views us as babysitters. And when I say society, yes.
I mean, with all the qualifications we have to have and all the documentations and observations and the follow-ups and follow-throughs, still, we're just sitting with babies?
We still just sitting with babies.
Okay.
We have heard legislators say, why do we need, because like you said, we advocate a lot and we're going to the Capitol and we're saying we need to invest. And legislators have said, why do we need to invest when they just sit there and do this all day?
Legislators.
The
uninformed.
The people that we put in their positions, the people who we employ, the people whose checks we all sign, thinks we do this all day.
So that brings me to my first question. What's your response to the people who say childcare workers aren't real teachers? If you want to say bullshit, you can say it.
I mean, bullshit is definitely where to start, but that's not the only choice words I would have for that.
Okay.
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. What's your response to people who say childcare workers aren't real teachers?
What is a real teacher? Can I respond to that question with the question, what is a real teacher?
Right.
And I've had these conversations with people. What about a teacher makes you think that a teacher is a teacher? And typically what they say is lesson plans. Okay, we do that.
Certifications.
Certifications.
We get them.
Education in the field. Got it. Got it. Required by state law, as a matter of fact.
Clock hours.
Yeah, continuing education for professional development. We're required and we do. And typically we get more than what's required of us because we do what's best for children. So when we see our staff is struggling in a certain area, we get them training on that because that's what's best for the kids. But to sum it all up, anything that they come to me with of what makes somebody a teacher, we do all of that and then some.
Right.
We also educate families.
Right.
And I don't think public school teachers do that. It's just
they don't have the capacity.
And this is what the policy is. You fall in line with the policy, and it is what it is. Whereas we try to get that understanding so that they can, because when you know better, you do better. And if we can partner with our families, it makes our job so much easier because we're mimicking each other.
Right.
So what is the difference? I can't find one, and can't nobody tell me one.
Right. So, but what would you say to a teacher who wants to leave your center or the early education field to go in the school system? And typically those who do that, they're going to be a parent. So let me be very clear in the question I'm asking, because not many teachers leave the early childhood centers and go and be a teacher at a school.
Correct.
They go and be a parent. An apparel is someone who's an aide to the teacher. So what do you say to people who want to make that type of move?
Honestly, it depends on the employee. Some of them I probably say, good luck. I wish you all the best. And
like
then
that?
Go home and be like, thank you, Jesus.
Pop the top.
So glad. But I do still wish them well. You
Right.
know, I don't wish harm for anybody, but others, I try to talk to them and make sure that they're making a very well-informed decision and that it's the decision that is best for them and their family. And if at the end of the day it is what's best for them and their family, I'll actually go as far as to help them through the process of their transition. But I haven't had to have too many of those conversations. And I have people who work for me right now, associate's degrees, bachelor degrees, and they're not trying to go to the public schools because they know it's a shit show in the public school system. And here at the Garden of Knowledge, it's still a shit show because we're changing shitty diapers.
Every day, all day.
But it's different, and they're supported. They're not bringing work home. They're not coming out of their pocket.
Smaller environment.
A smaller
class size.
environment, and admin, you call admin is there.
Right.
So I think the environment of which we create, that's not really even a conversation I've had to have.
Okay, absolutely. And so when you talk about them making the decision to go into the school systems, do you think that childcare teachers have enough formal training in early education as opposed to what may be required into the school system?
Yes, absolutely, because we do so much stuff. And we don't necessarily get the planning periods
Right.
that public school teachers get. And we still make it all happen.
Right.
And we're also in the classroom longer in the day.
Right.
They're in the classroom 8 hours a day from the time they clock in to the time they clock out. And they have children the entire time, and they still make it happen. What we have seen, however, is the reverse scenario doesn't work.
Okay.
People from the public school system come in, they done retired, and they want a little bit of an easier job, so they think they're going to come over here. And we as owners and directors think, oh, you're a teacher, you have all of this experience, it's going to be great. And they get there and they're like, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. I can't do this.
Right.
So I think ours can, yes, but for them to come to us, I've never seen it work, honestly.
So let's talk about the salaries some. Do you think that early childhood teachers deserve the same salaries as public school teachers?
No, they deserve more.
They deserve more.
More.
And you say more, why?
Because it's literally the most important job in the world.
Okay.
Every skill that a human learns, whether it's how to roll over, how to crawl, how to walk, how to talk, how to feed yourself, how to use the bathroom, how to wash your hands, ABCs, 1, 2, 3, 1 + 1 is 2, not 4. All of these basic skills as a human being, we lay that foundation down in early childhood. You learn how to be a productive human being in the first 5 years of your life.
Right.
It's us. That's us.
And reality is children are with the early child care centers for more hours throughout the active day than they are at home, than they are with their parents.
Yes, that's why some babies, like toddlers, 1-year-olds, when they're starting to talk, they'll call their teacher mama because we're fulfilling that same role. They don't understand,
Not
mama,
intentionally.
auntie.
Yeah, we're not trying to be mothers.
We're not trying to be mama, but their brains are just so small and they don't have the mental capacity to differentiate between a mother and an aunt. What they can differentiate between is the type of care that they're receiving. So when they're calling us mama, it's because they feel so loved and comfortable with us.
Right.
We're giving them that nurturing, loving environment that they thrive in. And so they think, oh, this is what mama does. So they call us mama.
But even those 3s and 4s, do you think they get that same feel from, those I've seen a pre-K 2 program, girl. Now they going too far. Next we're going to have pre-K infants, right?
PI,
pre-K infants. But however, can those teachers give that same amount of attention and care and nurture in these programs that keeps trying to put children in these school settings at a younger and younger age?
I will say this. We do go under observations just like public school teachers
absolutely.
do. And if you compare the scores of just the pre-K program, I want to be clear about that part because normally people look at the overall score and compare the private sector to the public school of overall. But in the public schools, they're not doing the infant tool for observations. They're not doing the toddler tool. They're doing strictly pre-K. So if you look at pre-K scores in the public sector and compare it to the pre-K only scores in the private childcare sector,
correct,
we outperform them.
Right.
We outperform them. We work more hours. We work all year long. We don't get summers off. The breaks that we do get are much shorter than in the public school system. Our teachers are not as formally educated as public school teachers, yet we outperform them.
Right. And why do you think that's so though?
Because we do it for what the job is.
Right.
I think we have gotten away from, and not just here in Louisiana, I think across the entire country, people are going into education not to be an educator, but because of what the job can do for them, the benefits, the time off, this, that, and the other. And that's not to say everybody.
Right.
Not everybody, because my best friend became a teacher because she needed a job, but she found out, I love this. This is actually what I really want to do with my life. And I think that we do it because we love it. Our teachers still live in poverty, but they still show up every day with a smile on their face, dressed appropriately, ready to teach. And it's because this is a work of heart.
Right. It absolutely is. And speaking of the teachers who still live in poverty, and we talk about that often, how we have all these grant funded programs where it's for the lower, the people who are lower on the economic ladder and things of that matter. But 9.9 times out of 10, our teachers are being able to apply and approve for these programs, right? So that says something alone about the pay that is being paid to these teachers.
Yes.
But the question is, some say childcare teachers complain about pay, but they aren't willing to get more education for a higher salary. What do you think about that as it relates to teachers in the public school? They have to go through trainings, they have to go through certain certifications, and they do get a better pay, right? What do you say to those childcare teachers who just don't want to do more training but complain about the pay?
This is where I'm really going to make some people mad.
Oh, shit.
That's the kind of people I try not to employ.
Right.
If you don't want to further your education, now if they're a floater, okay, well, you could stay a floater. That's fine. That's fine. You can stay a floater. But if you have dreams and aspirations and you want to grow, you have to be willing to take steps towards that growth. You have to plant a seed if you want the plant to grow, right?
Right, absolutely.
So for those types of people that you're talking about, I try my best to not employ them, because if you don't want to do that, am I going to have trouble getting those 12 clock hours out of you every year? So I try to avoid that.
Absolutely. We have those who come in and want a higher salary but don't want to do the work. But then you wonder why, teachers are getting paid more, because they have these requirements that they have to fulfill before they even walk through the door, right?
Correct.
Before they even walk through the door. So, you just have to kind of look at it and weigh those pros and cons. But I have a better question for you. What would happen if childcare teachers went on strike? Would the
world
industry
would
survive?
end. The world would end.
Like literally? Like
No,
Bible?
not literally.
Oh my God.
But it would come to it would come to a halt, though. If you really think about the pandemic, we were encouraged to stay open.
While everybody else closing and dying and stuff.
And why did they encourage us to stay open? Doctors still needed somewhere for their children to go so that they could save lives. Police officers still needed somewhere for their children to go while they're saving lives, protecting lives. All of the people, the essential workers, and remember, they didn't call us essential workers at first, right? But without us, the essential workers couldn't do their job.
Which means we were more essential than the essential
Period. Period. So if we went on strike, it all comes to a halt. Getting them there is definitely the hard part, right? And I have had some legislators come through my center and they listened to what I said, but did they hear what I said? There's definitely a difference in that. How do we get them to listen? I haven't quite figured that out yet. Something else that
we gotta rock two babies and not one.
That's against licensing. We can't do that. No.
Well, that's what they think we do anyway.
They think we're two with one on each knee.
Right.
I do think it's important to show them maybe some studies, because the science is there. The science is definitely there. And we have been getting through to some of them with some of the science. Some of them are seeing it's undeniable the results. Crime does go down in areas that heavily invest in it. And with that comes, if they're not in jail, they're probably at work.
Right.
That's good for the economy. So I think just educating our legislators, and quite honestly, our communities as well. There's still so many places that call themselves daycare. And look, I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit. I hate that word daycare.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a big campaign of at least mine. If nobody else jumps on board, we have to stop calling ourselves a daycare. I did interview questions, and when you get to question 13 and 14, number 13 says, what does the term daycare mean to you? What does the term preschool mean to you? Which environment would you prefer to work at? And when I look through them, they all pretty much say the same thing. Daycare is pretty much babysitting. It's a safe place to bring your children while you go to work. Well, what is preschool? It's also a safe place to bring yourself to work, or bring your children to work bring your children while you're at work. But there's also learning involved. Well, if we're calling ourselves daycare, What image are we giving to our potential employees? What image are we giving to our families? What image are we giving to legislators? If that's what they thinking we're calling ourselves that, so we have to stop that too. So we need to educate our legislators, we need to educate our communities, and we have to start calling ourselves what we are, educators.
Educators, and that could be one of the main thing that drives us forward as we try to find how we can start retaining more of our children in our early learning centers as opposed to turning them over into the school systems, right? So let's talk a little bit about what are some things that the Garden of Knowledge does that kind of set you apart from those school settings. We already talked about those ratios and the classroom size, and just one parent said at one time her child got pulled into one of those programs and she sent them, but the little girl couldn't cope social and emotionally, right? That's a bigger environment, a bigger platform, and sometimes they are not intelligent or at that social and emotional stage to keep up and compete, right? So what do you say the Garden of Knowledge does that kind of highlights your excellence where you can do just as good or if not better in your program as opposed to turning a child over into the school system
We
so early?
we do have smaller ratios.
Okay.
So, for example, our 2-year-old class, you could have 10 or 11. They keep switching that one.
It's 10 now.
It's
It's
10
back
now.
down to
It's back
10.
to 10. Well, I did never paid attention because I keep that class at 8.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it
Well,
don't
check
matter
you
to
out.
me. I keep it at 8. So we could have 10. I keep it at 8. My 1-year-old classes, they stay at 5 or 6. One might have 5, the other might have 6. They go back and forth. But between those two classes, it's only going to be 11. But we could have 14. So we keep our ratios a lot lower so that they could have that one-on-one. And let's be real, these COVID babies are something. I don't know that they could handle at full ratio. So we have lower ratios. We are a smaller center. I also encourage families to come and tour my center because my environment might not be good for all children. And I'll be the
Absolutely.
first to admit that that's a shortcoming of mine. It's an open center.
Right.
I have 4 classrooms of children in one big room.
Right.
If you have a child that's on the spectrum or sensory processing disorder, this is probably not the environment.
Right.
It's overstimulating, overwhelming, and I will be the first to admit that shortfall because it's what's best for the child.
Right.
All money ain't good money, and
Right.
I want to do what's best for that child. So I think that really sets us apart as well, making sure that we are the right fit. It's not that it's a bad child or a bad center, it's just a bad fit, and we don't want a bad fit. And we focus on that a lot.
So let me ask you, aside from the pay, what will be another thing that would make a teacher leave from early child care into the school system?
Unpopular opinion, it's not the pay.
Oh, okay.
It's not the pay.
What makes them leave?
Lack of support from admin, having to create, we talking about public schools, right? Okay, public schools, lack of support from admin, having to create their own curriculums. Now imagine being a high school teacher where you have 100 and something kids and you have to create your own curriculum and then go lesson plan off of the curriculum that you just built. You're taking all of this work home. The parents can talk to you any kind of way. The children can talk to you any kind of way. They go to the office, they come back with a bag of chips and nothing ever happens to them. So when we have these conversations to say, well, if we just paid teachers more, what we as educators are hearing is if we paid you more, you would stay in this abusive relationship. And that's not the case. And I see it every day because I know how much I pay my staff. They know how much they could get paid. They're not running to the public schools.
Right.
It's not the pay. It's everything else. They're in an abusive relationship.
We don't like abuse. So when we talk about getting more recognition for the early childhood system and making sure that our teachers are better taken care of financially, education wise, what is the first step we need to do?
That's a tough question because a lot of our teachers do rely on subsidies. So we end up having to play that game. I've actually had staff members come to me and say, take back that raise you gave me because it's going to jeopardize my food stamps. And that raise isn't going to offset what I'm losing in food stamps. I mean, bigger investments to get these people out of poverty. There is no reason in the world somebody should work a 40-hour-a-week job and still qualify for government subsidies.
Right.
That's just insane. We've got to take education serious and start really investing in it.
And so when we talk to, like I said, when we recorded last season for the podcast, when we talk about advocating and getting the eyes and the ears of people, a lot of times the teachers don't even do it themselves. Do you know the percentage of your teachers who actually go out and vote for those local elections, who actually go out and advocate, who rallies their families? Come on, y'all, I need y'all to vote for this because the funding for early child care is on the ballot, and I need to make sure that, I have sustainability in my job. How do we get the teachers to understand the seriousness of this situation?
Personalize it. How could this impact you? And I've actually know voting is I'm a little political, as you
Just a
know,
little.
just a little. And so voting is definitely something that's very important to me. Even if you don't vote the way that I would hope you would vote, at least you voted. So I really do focus on that with my staff. Maybe that's something else that sets me apart. And I engage with my families as well. When we have those call to actions with CCAL, I tell my families too, I need you to call this number and this is what I need you to say. And they're like, well, why am I doing this? Because if you don't, you could lose your child care assistance.
Right.
And they're like, oh, what's the number? Tell me what to
Right.
say. Give me the paper. So explain to them how this could impact you. If it goes this way, this is what's going to happen. If it goes that way, that's what's going to happen. Which way do you want it to go?
Right.
And you need to go and voice your opinion. That's your right. That is your right. And so many people fought for that. And quite honestly, some might be trying to take it from us. You better exercise that right while you can.
And them taking it from us does what?
Taking away our right to vote, that takes away our voice. We basically become, we don't get to say anything. They make decisions for all of us.
Right.
And to think about people who think that I just do this all day, making all of the decisions without me having any type of input.
Right.
I talk too much for that. I talk way too much for that. No, I have a voice. God gave me a voice and my voice will be heard. And I really try to inspire that in others.
Okay, absolutely. So I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to talk about childcare versus public schools. What's the difference? Why do teachers keep falling that way? Why do our legislators and school systems and all keep wanting to funnel more children into the public schools? And it's really like you say, we actually need to speak up more. We need to be more vocal. And we need to utilize our voices to vote. I am of the mindset, leave a child in a child's place. Stop trying to turn these children over into big schools and bigger environments before they're able to handle it. And so, as you said, we have to advocate more to protect our children.
Yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, while I had you here, we had a special guest this morning. We had Mr. Quanin from the Garden of Knowledge. I spoke with him earlier today about men in ECE, and it was an excellent conversation. He had a great point of view. He's very expressive. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about you having a male working in your early child care center. How is that working out for you?
It's fine. I did have one parent who was uncomfortable with his presence. That family does not attend my center anymore, and Mr. Kwan is 3 years strong with
Did you
me.
kick him out?
No, I didn't.
Because we can kick parents out.
We can kick
They act like
parents
we can't.
out.
We can kick you out.
We can. But I did, when she came to me and expressed her concern, I let her know, Mr. Kwan has gone through the same exact background check that I have. He is in college studying early childhood education. He is in the military and he is active in his church. I have no reason for him to not be here. And I'm sorry that his presence makes you uncomfortable. I can make recommendations of other centers that do not employ men.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that was a one and done type of thing. They're not with me anymore. They removed themselves.
They removed themselves. So let me ask, if we can have more men in early education, what do you think that would look like for our industry?
I mean, it would be amazing. I think we need more men in childcare for a multitude of reasons. In my area specifically, There's definitely a racial divide where I am, and we're poverty stricken. And I find it very important to have such a positive Black man in my center, so that my Black children can see this strong Black man, excuse me, but also so that white children don't think I have to be afraid of Black men, because we
Right.
see that a lot in society. We are more afraid of Black men than we are any other demographic that there is. And for what?
Right.
For what? So let Mr. Kwan be that first Black man that they meet.
Right.
Because who doesn't love Mr. Kwan? What is
Right.
there to be afraid of?
Right.
There's nothing to be afraid of. One thing I am working on, Mr. Ty Clark told me I have to start letting Mr. Kwan change diapers. And I always shied away from that, because it's not that I don't trust Mr. Kwan, because clearly I do, but it's the parents that I don't trust to make accusations against Mr. Kwan, and I refuse to allow him to be in that type of
So
position.
I agree with you. You ain't got to work on nothing. Mr. Ty Clark, he can go change as many diapers as he want, help freshen up as many heinies as he want. But I am totally in agreement with you. It is not because you don't trust Mr. Kwan. It is not because you have concern of Mr. Kwan. It is because you want to protect him, and you
Protect.
also want to limit liability.
Yes.
Just the mere accusation
Yes.
can shut your whole establishment down
Yes, and ruin his whole life.
and ruin his whole life. So no.
She said no.
We appreciate your words, but you can keep on changing them yourself, sir. Can't do it. Sorry. But no, that's just the real reality of it, and we spoke a little bit about that. And I don't care what you say, how you feel. Quan say he not doing it.
He's uncomfortable.
He said no.
He's not comfortable with it at all, and that's another reason too. Why would I force that on him if it's making him very uncomfortable, and it is such a taboo and sensitive topic? I'm not gonna force that on him. I'm just not.
Well, I thank you for touching on the subject that, I actually had on my heart to discuss anyway when we talked about Mr. Klein coming in, but the diversity. You said that he's a positive young Black man, and you love that he's there at your center and that he can be a role model for the children. Have you had any parents, give you any kickback, not only from a man, but having a Black man at your establishment?
So in that one family, she didn't say that it was because he was a Black man, but there was another man there also, a white man. Now let's talk about this
Let's
white
talk.
man. All Black hair, Black fingernail polish, pentagram. Like, I'm not gonna say he was satanic. I don't know what his religious beliefs were, but he definitely was not wearing Christian-like stuff.
Maybe goth.
I don't. Yeah, very goth looking.
Goth,
That's a
yes.
good way to put
Yes.
it. He was very goth looking. But he was also a student teacher, not employed by me.
Okay.
He's there getting his hours. And the mom saw him on his phone. Now, first she said that she was uncomfortable with Mr. Kwan working there. But she said about the white guy that she was just upset that he was on his phone. So you're not uncomfortable with his presence. You're just uncomfortable with him being on the phone, but you're uncomfortable with Mr. Kwan's presence. And the only two things, since Mr. Kwan works for me and this man does not, the only other difference that I could see here is the color of their skin.
Okay.
Again, Mr. Kwan is still with me 3 years strong, and that family was gone a month or less later.
So do you think in your area, in your community, you're actually able to bridge the gap and break down barriers as there can still be a racial divide, not just the issue with gender, but also a issue with race? Do you think that you all could be helping set the trail in showing, can we all just get along?
I think that we are. I see it very often. There's this little Black girl whose best friend is a little white girl.
Right.
And outside of school, this little white girl don't never see Black people ever,
Right.
only at school. And now
Right.
her best friend is a Black child. That would have never happened if they weren't at the Garden of Knowledge, where we have such diversity. So I know that we are. Some of these children, this is their first introduction to somebody that doesn't look like them. Not even just Black people, Asian people, mixed children or biracial children, just people that don't look like them in general. This is the first time they're experiencing that. And I'll give you another example. when I was still at the other center that I was running for somebody else, a little white girl was always pulling on this black girl's hair. But it was only the black girl whose hair she would pull on. Now, outside of school, no black people in her environment. Mom was like so distraught. Like, why is my child picking on this little girl?
Right.
And I said, Mom, do me a favor. I think that the texture of the hair is so new to her. If you go get a black baby doll and let her play with it, let's make it not new.
Right.
Let's
Right.
normalize this for
right.
her. It's new to her, so she's intrigued. So mom went and bought a black baby doll. It wasn't new anymore. And guess what? She didn't pull hair no more.
She didn't pull her no
She
more.
didn't pull hair no more.
And so that speaks to volumes about the exposure, just kind of like what we talked about earlier with Mr. Klein, being exposed to the children being exposed to a male in the center, the parents being exposed to a male, and then like you say, a black male at that, that level of comfortability. I think is so important that we set the trend and the standard, in early education. As you alluded to, Jen, these children absorb and learn so much in the first 5 years of their life, right? And just kind of how we talked before, how we show up is important, who we show up as is important, what we expose the children to is important. So I think as we continue to build a more diverse culture in early education, open dialogue and conversation like this is important. We need to be able to see how we can work together, how we could bring more men into early education, how we could bring more Latinos and African Americans and whoever into our, because we really just one big mosh podge of culture.
Yes.
So we serve in one of my centers, we serve so many Hispanic families now. We have some Haitian families, people we can't even communicate with verbally because of that difference in that language barrier, right? And so the fact that they keep coming to us tell me we need to start employing them. We need to start, doing more things for our cultural awareness in our centers because we want all the children learn things.
Yes.
They're not born a certain kind of way, right?
This my camera. Racism is a learned behavior.
Okay. Say it again.
Racism is a learned behavior, which will not be taught at the Garden of Knowledge.
She ain't lying, though. She ain't lying. But that goes back to what I'm saying. Just the mere fact that on so many levels, by having Mr. Klein at you all's location is helping you, kind of expose the children to what a healthy, environment of people look like, a healthy observation of what the real world looks like, because in all honesty, like you say, those who go home to the same community and don't see anything on the outside, as they grow older, they're not going to learn how to manage, right? They're going to do what they're taught.
Correct.
Right, absolutely. Well, I'm so happy you had the opportunity to come by and talk today. I want to definitely give you a time to kind of shine and shout yourself out. Anything going on new with you all, anything you're working on. I know that you take copious notes as the secretary of the Childcare Association of Louisiana, but you sit on a few more boards, right? Pop your collar a little bit because you are definitely a go-getter.
Yeah, so I do a whole lot. I do less now than I did a few months ago. Family Reach Alliance. I'm a new board member. I've actually been a community partner with them for about 6-7 years, but I'm a recent board member and I'm also the fund development chair for them. And they're a nonprofit organization that helps homeless children and their families with wraparound services. You don't have a car, that's why you can't get to work. We're gonna get you a car. You don't have a job, we're gonna help you find a job. You don't have food stamps and Medicaid, let's get that. You need childcare so that you can go to work, let's get you some childcare. Basically anything and everything that's preventing you from being in a home, we're gonna help you attain those things. So I do a lot of, it's a new passion. I didn't realize until I became a community partner that I also have a passion for homelessness as well. And so the work there is humbling. It's taught me a lot. Homelessness doesn't look like what you think it does. That's the only other podcast I've been on too, by the way, was for the Family Reach Alliance. It's a wonderful organization.
But say that again. Homeless doesn't what?
It doesn't look like what you think it does.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. And I learned that, like, my own biases, like, You know, I'm thinking when I imagine a homeless family, I'm imagining them living under a bridge. That's not
With
what
a cardboard box and dirty and scruffy and
that's not what they look like. That's
they walking
not
around looking like you and me a lot of times.
a lot of times going to work every day. In fact, one of our colleagues, we just mentioned him, Mr. Ty Clark, used to live in his car and closed his center, ironed his clothes, and went and took a shower at the local gym.
I have a few more questions for you as we talk about this, but is this a dead end job?
Depends on who you work for.
Oh.
So if
Ooh.
you work for somebody who has multiple centers, or maybe they have one center with the aspirations to grow, you could probably grow with them and grow with their company. Or maybe they're looking to do things outside of childcare. You have things outside of childcare that you
Absolutely.
dabble in as well. So if you have someone that you're working for that does a lot of things and they don't limit your growth professionally, then no, it's not a dead end job. But if you work for somebody that has one or two centers and that's it, they don't want you doing anything to grow. They don't want you going into Leela. They don't want you doing anything extra. That's gonna be a dead end job.
And they're always looking to hire from the outside, not build up and
Not
promote from
build up,
inside.
not build up, not build up. They're just it is you're gonna if you were hired as a teacher, you probably always gonna be a teacher. I also believe that we create our own glass ceilings. So
Okay.
I worked for a person who had multiple centers, but I was the director.
Right.
Where else was I gonna go? I can't move
Right.
anywhere above that.
Right.
But she did not prohibit my professional growth.
Right.
And now I'm an owner.
Right.
I work for myself now.
Right.
So I didn't allow there to be a glass ceiling for me.
Right.
So it depends on who you work for, and it depends on what you're willing to do for yourself.
Well, talking about who you work for, what you're willing to do for yourself, I got a little sticky, icky question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Unions. Do you think there should be a union for early childhood education?
No.
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 Okay.
So the reason I say no is K-12, they have unions. But let's talk about the teacher shortage for a second.
Okay.
We have a teacher shortage. We've already said that the teacher shortage isn't because of the pay. It's not because of the pay. It's because of this abusive relationship that teachers are in. What are the unions doing for them to solve those problems? I don't see the unions doing much of anything except taking their money. However, I do see unions helping teachers when they get in trouble, when they done hit a child or they having sexual relationships with children. Unions help them in those situations. Why are we protecting child predators
And abuse.
and abuse?
Oh.
So no, I don't think they need unions.
No, you
It's
don't
just-
think that we could build that there can be a great union that come along and help protect and advocate for early child care teachers?
Could it be? Yeah, there could be. Could the teachers use that? I guess maybe, but it kind of gets hard. How you gonna have a union? Because I guess industry standards, right? They could impact industry standards. In a utopian world, that would be ideal. I just don't see it happening. Because look at all of the unions, not even just teacher unions. I don't see it happening.
Well, we have to come up with something one day that'll help protect.
We could create it.
That's what I was gonna say. That
We
can
could create
protect
it.
our early child care teachers and
That I would get
help
on board
help
with.
give them a backbone and give them a place to stand and somebody who could support them.
And
So I
teach them
do
how
think
to advocate.
I do think
Now, in that
is something we
regard,
could
I'll
do.
agree with that.
See,
But
yeah,
that
he tell
man-
that story.
He tells that story. And look at where he is now. So homelessness definitely does not look like what we think it does. That was very eye-opening. And to see an infant, a little baby with no home, no place to call home. It was very eye-opening. So I love that organization as well. Thank you for letting me shout them out. Family Reach Alliance. If you or anybody that you know is in need of help, call Family Reach Alliance.
Absolutely.
Also, I do a little work with LaCal, the Louisiana Centers for After School Learning.
Okay.
I know that the work that we do can sometimes get unraveled when they leave from us.
Right.
So I've made it my business to try to work on that as well. Because why am I going to do all of this and pour so much into these
Right.
children for them to just go out into the real world and it all gets
Drop
undone?
the ball.
So I try to do what I can in other areas in after school learning. If children are in quality after school programs,
Right.
then they're not ratting the streets. An idle mind is the devil's playground.
Hello.
So we need to give these children something to do. So I'm doing some work with them as well. What else am I doing?
I don't know. You always got stuff going.
I am an elected official. Did you know that?
No.
Yes.
No, girl.
I am an elected official.
Okay.
I am not a politician, but I am the Washington Parish Democrat Party Executive Committee at large. So I represent the entire parish
Okay.
for the Democrat Party.
Congrats, Jen.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm also the assistant secretary for them as well.
Okay. Copious notes. She will take copious notes.
Copious notes. And Leela, I do some stuff for Leela, the Louisiana Early Leaders Academy.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
cohort 2, and you are cohort
4.
4. Awesome.
Yes.
So I do a little work with them too for the alumni. And I'm probably forgetting something else, and who knows?
She's probably forgetting something else. Well, you definitely do a lot, Jen, in the community. You do a lot for early education. Your voice always is loud and strong. You advocate a lot. You find the loopholes. I mean, like I say, just the amount of knowledge you carry is always very fascinating to me. And that's why I thought you were the perfect person to have this conversation about childcare versus public schools and kind of break down some of, just the stereotypes and what those misbeliefs and beliefs are, right? So as we wrap up this episode of the Childcare Teacher Chronicles podcast, I want to thank you again, Ms. Jennifer Stevenson, for coming on and speaking with us today. Look, guys, this is the place to go where you want to know all things childcare, but specifically as it relates to the teacher. We gonna talk about it. If you want to know about it, we gonna talk about it. So I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that you share, because we got something so hot coming up for you all. You do not want to miss it. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Home run, touchdown, buzzer beater, do it all now, top corner talking home run, touchdown.